the next session now is going to be, we call it Sales Team Challenges Throughout a Startup Journey. And as we were preparing for it and talked to our guests about the challenges that they are experiencing, and also from the questions that all of you sent us on the registration form, it was pretty amazing to see how challenges never really go away. They just keep taking up different shapes and change as the company grows. And so to talk about these challenges, I'd like to invite Emmanuel Kaniewski, sorry if I'm not saying your last name correctly, VP Sales at Oribi, Yair Areli, VP Corporate Sales at Sisense, and Zvi Piritz, VP Global Sales at Incredible. And we have Nir staying with us from Monday. I am missing Yair.
He's with us.
Yeah?
Yes, he is.
In spirit or in actual?
Do you want to say hello?
Hello, I'm here.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see you. Oh, good. Well, you were further away, but here you are. That's good. Good to know. So what we're going to do now is really take the 5 pillars we just discussed and see how companies of different stages experience those challenges around different areas in different ways. And we wanted the topics to be relevant for as many of you as we can. So a lot of the questions you'll see in the slides, as I said, come from really quotes of questions you all asked us. So really quickly, and this isn't about, and I just remind everyone, this is a Startup for Startup event on which we are here to share knowledge, not to pitch any of our companies. So very quickly, I'm gonna ask every one of you to present your companies with one word, please, one sentence. I'll interrupt. I'll be very bad if you take more than that, on what do you do, just so that people know, and then just the description on what's the status of the company today. Emmanuel, please begin.
All right, can you hear me, guys?
Yes, we can.
First of all, Leo and everyone, thank you for inviting me. Great pleasure to be here. And hello to all my panelists friends. So in one word, Oribi is probably one of the best, and being objective, one of the best alternatives for Google Analytics. I'm Emmanuel, based in Israel, VP Sales at Oribi, 13 years in the industry of the sales in high tech. And as you can see, Oribi is fairly early stage startup, founded around 4 years ago. We're around 30 employees, and we're scaling we're kind of in the first stage of the first few millions of ARR of an early stage startup, and experiencing the exciting times of scaling.
Thank you. Zvi?
Hi, Lior and everyone. Thank you for hosting us. Incredible is an incredible company founded in 2002. So we're quite a while in the business. Was acquired by Fortissimo in 2018. Until then, it was a small company, and then started its hyper growth path. Incredible are providing a cross-platform for acceleration of different build types. In other words, we're optimizing the developer's time and saving a lot of money to companies. That's what we do, and I'm there to lead sales.
Thank you, Zvi. Nir, in very quick note.
Yeah, I think like Monday.com, we were founded 2012. We provide a work collaboration platform that is able to manage like any business process on top of our platform. We've exceeded 600 employees globally and 110 people in the sales group.
And last but not least, Yair.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for spending the time with us this morning or afternoon, depends where you are. I'm Yair, VP Sales, Corporate Sales at Sisense. Sisense helps companies save money or make additional revenue streams or make more money by utilizing their data in the best possible way. A company founded in 2005. I was honored to join the team very early on, just after round A, a little over 10 years ago, is employee number 4 and seller number 1. Out of Tel Aviv originally, 7 years ago, I moved to New York to help build the business here with a bunch of other great people. Globally, we have about 800 people, a little over half in the US, still good representation in Israel and some other places in Eastern Europe and other global locations. The sales team globally is about 150 people, AEs only, not ADRs, ACs, and those are obviously in addition. And my team is comprised of a little over 50 AEs plus sales leadership, so 60, 65 total.
Let's begin. So picking from exactly where we stopped our last session, let's start here with the challenge of talent and training. So here are a few questions that we found to be common around all company sizes. And Emmanuel, why don't you start by talking about how to hire talent with no previous experience?
Yeah, I think this is a big topic. You know, some of the people in the industry saying that, you know, your success with salespeople and generally, you know, executing the growth, it's 50% in the kind of having a successful salesperson is in the hiring phase. You need to hire, like if you hire the right one, you know, you already did half of the job. So the thing is that, you know, just to share with everyone, the way we kind of hire people is in somewhat is very challenging because we get endless CVs. Us, the HR, it's really kind of, there are a lot of hidden things about the person, whether there are good things or, you know, things that needs to be improved that we don't see necessarily in the beginning. And from my experience, you know, I've seen it, you know, I was lucky enough to work with Nir and Yair in Sisense for many years before. And in previous startups, it wasn't always the case that when we kind of, you know, saw an amazing CV with all the numbers that we wanted and the track record and everything, and then eventually it was a failure. And it happens many times. It's not just to us, to many colleagues that I'm speaking with in the industry. So I think that, first of all, from my experience, what I'm doing when I'm hiring salespeople is to keep an open mind and not necessarily just go through a script and, you know, try to find the regular pattern that we're looking for, but really try to get into the person. It's not an easy job. I don't know if you can, you know, if there's someone that can teach it, but you really need to trust your gut feel and to ask the person that you're interviewing all the relevant questions that going to kind of lead your kind of perspective to how's that person is going to perform here, and also provide some simulations, not like practical simulations, but provide questions. What, you know, if that would happen, what would you do? And then try to go. It's not doing it as a test, but more of a guided tour together to understand kind of the logic behind it. Also,
a real life interaction, you mean?
Yes, correct. And also another thing, super, super important, involve your team, your top performers in the interview process. Once they're gonna hire and meet that person, they're gonna see stuff that you're not gonna see. Some you will agree, some you won't, but the brainstorm, the wisdom of the crowd will give you a better way to make a decision.
Yeah, would you hire talent over experience?
Over the years, and following many unsuccessful hires, learned to favor talent over experience. Ideally, I would want both. So if you think, let's give an analogy from the sports world. If I can get Steph Curry, it's because of his basketball career, super talented, but also very experienced in throwing the final shot at the NBA Finals, I would take him. But most of the Steph Currys are not out there, right? They're not looking for a new job, and if they do, you can't afford them, or at least not at scale. You can bring 12 Steph Currys into your team. So the question is, how do you identify the talents? Knowing if somebody has talents, you can nurture the experience fairly quickly. If the person is coachable, looking to learn new things, and also has grit, so they don't mind, she or he, they don't mind failing, and you have some tolerance and patience with them, you can grow them into a sales monster, in nice words, very, very quickly. And I'll throw it back to you. Would you hire, if you need to bring one more person into your NBA team, would you bring the most experienced person, 37 years old LeBron James, who is a superstar and also not available? Or if you're building for the long term, would you bring #1 draft pick, the most talented person, Zion Williamson, right?
So you touched on availability, and I think we should not let's not pretend that we are hiring talent with no previous experience just because we want. There's also a competitive situation here, right? Nir, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I mean,
what do we do? What do you do? Yeah, you have competition here on this panel in front of you, you know? So what do you do about that?
Yeah, competition is definitely out there constantly. I think that one of the ideas is to try and identify your strong points compared to the competition and try to highlight them. For example, in Monday, as you heard in our previous session, we have a pretty exceptional compensation model. And when we wanted to attract top talents and like President Club from other organizations, those are usually the people that met more than 100% of their annual target, and accordingly, that was their salary. Now we're trying to convince them to join us and earn fixed salary. That was a challenge for us, but we understood that a lot of the people who are looking into new places care a lot about culture, and we have identified that culture is a significant element in our organization as a company, in the sales organization, and we started putting focus a lot about that and marketing our unique culture and the unique team spirit and atmosphere that we have along the sales team. And that really resonated with many of the talents that we were aiming for. And that's how we were able to, change the situation and get a lot of top achievers into our team.
Tzvi, when we prepared for this session, you mentioned that knowing when to fire is not less important.
So just to relate to what my colleagues said, I don't think that talent and experience always contradict. You can have a talented, experienced person that you would like to hire. So it's not always either this or that. Mix is important, and you need to keep an open eye on creating a diversity in your team. It can help you do the changes if you do, and so on and so forth. And as per hire fast and fire faster, I'll relate to what Yair said. We all have tons of failures in our recruiting because CV says one thing and then you find a different thing. And it's important to hire fast. It's even more important to fire faster if you think that there is no fit. It's right for the person and it's right for you. And that's the whole thing. And last but not least, listening to what the candidate is telling you. I found it not less important, and sometimes we don't listen. He or she can tell us that they are for a certain region, and then it comes and we're inventing other things. So listening is also can helping minimizing the firing part of the saga.
So I'm actually gonna jump just because I can. Jump too much. Nir is so proud of our compensation model, as you all heard today and on our preps. And this topic also triggered a lot of questions from the crowd. So how do you, the three of you that are not Monday people, how do you feel about it? What are your compensation models? Why? If it's such a great one, why don't you adopt it? Like, show us the pitfalls, Emmanuel,
So
yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. So I think not one size fits all. I mean, whatever Nir can allow himself and the management of Monday can allow themselves to do, cash-wise, or motivation-wise with the sums and the model cannot just happen on any other startup.
What's your compensation model on Aribi?
So our compensation model, we're having a base salary plus a commission, a very aggressive commission model. As opposed to other startups, totally not economical at all in any financial aspect. But that's fine. It's on purpose because we wanna maintain a very, very high growth. So it's basically like
Emmanuel, people are asking if you can define aggressive.
Aggressive, it means that it's if you take the percentage, obviously we're not going to go into exact numbers, but if you take the percentage per deal that they're bringing, it's one of the highest in the global market today, relatively to the deal itself, and there is no cap. So you can actually bring as many deals as you want. Some startups out there do cap, which is wise because it needs to be like that. And we kind of, we kind of put all our eggs and all our chips on the commission, because that's where we want our sales team to focus. And I have to say we're doing it because we're at that stage of the company. So that's how we work.
Yeah, you've been with Sisense, as you said, for 8 years now. And Nir mentioned that one of the reasons to have our compensation model is to align between personal and company goals. How do you do that alternatively?
So I can absolutely see why somebody who's always their salary is guaranteed, look at their peers' goals and not on the individual goals, right? That's what the compensation is all about. At the same time, Monday is in a unique position. It has cash flow implications. It also have implications on type of talent you hire. Just like Nir said, when you go and try to hunt for a talent that have been doing it for a while in large accounts and made high 6 to maybe even 7 figures annual compensation in the US, you won't be able to compel them because you'll never be able to pay such a base salary, because that would be a base salary that is way higher than the CEOs, and you won't be able to do it at scale. So it means it is compelling for a specific profile that goes after specific accounts. And as the company evolves, you'll have to reconsider. Sisense offers 50% base, 50% commission. The commission is uncapped and heavily accelerated above annual target. And on top of that, we provide some equity. But I think the alignment between the personal goals and the team goals and the company goals also come from leadership. And I've had cases in the past when A's told me, well, I'm just an A, my job is to sell. And I said, I want to remind you that you have a base salary and you should be honored to work in this company and be part of this group. And then you have equity and you have a stake in the game. Most of the A's, if not all of them, have that. And I ask you to spend X of your time, not the majority of your time, but a small proportion of your time in directly impacting the things I just mentioned. So to summarize it, it all boils down to leadership. And I'll just make one comment about hire fast and hire slow, fire fast. At the same time, people usually leave their manager, they don't leave a company, or they don't leave a role. And even the millennials, even in a capitalistic city as New York, would not leave you just because somebody offered them $10,000 more annually. They would offer because they don't feel the challenge and the care and the career progression trajectory is right here, and somewhere else is better. And the money also happens to be substantially better.
Nir, just people are trying to understand, how do you hire enterprise salespeople after listening to everything that Emmanuel and Yair said? But
first, I do extra proud in our compensation model. But I have to say, I do agree. It imposes many, many challenges on us as leaders in the sales group. It's not straightforward. It's very unique. And one of the challenges is, bringing top billers or enterprise salespeople. Just for the sake of the questions, it's not. We will hire. We have 3 enterprise sales teams in the US and additional 2 in the global, or in my group, in the rest of the world group. So we do have enterprise salespeople. Some of them are experienced. I think that what works in our favor is that we consider the significant stock options that we offer as part of the global compensation model. So a salesperson that would join Monday would not only see a competitive salary on a month-to-month basis, but if they would stay with a company long enough, they would get significant compensation part from those options. And Monday's valuation is growing very fast. We've done more than 25x over the past 2.5 years. And I think that's, again, when I talked about leveraging your strong points, we've definitely identified that our valuation is growing rapidly, and we're leveraging it when hiring people. Having said that, it may be changed in the future. We may come to a point that it won't make complete sense to pay 100% fixed salary, and we will add commission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what was your point on compensation and benchmark? Oh, if you want to also comment, go ahead.
I would say that we constantly benchmark reference companies in our industries, in similar industries, in similar geographies, and we try to ensure that we're at least at the benchmark, and ideally for key talent, not for everybody, but for people that are perceived as key talent, we do way above the benchmark, while we offer them additional unique things that they hopefully cannot find elsewhere. So it is about the money for every person in a capitalistic world, especially for salespeople. But I do believe there's importance for additional elements as well, which I spend a lot of my time on.
I would like to add one more thing, is that at the end of the day, and maybe it was heard from all of the panelists, the monetary compensation is not number one for any one of us, probably. This is the thing. It's a combination of many things, or fewer things, that makes it attractive for one to stay at a certain company. And Monday are proving it, that they offer a certain model, which the immediate monetary compensation is not the highest priority. And in any company that I've worked with, it wasn't. So let's remember that. At the end of the day, benchmarking is important, but it's not. If you don't have product, it won't last long for the salesperson.
Can I say a couple of things about attracting top talent in a competitive world? And by the way, the competition continues to be intense despite COVID, not for talent, for the top talent, which is what we're after anyway. So what I learned, again, throughout trial and error, is that people, assuming money is a wash and everybody kind of offer the same, right? That's the benchmarking. Now the question is, who do they trust? Which manager they want to work for, which manager they believe can teach them and lead them to a better professional state, while making the work environment a fun place. That's especially in the millennial world. And so we invest a lot of time in leading by example, leading from the front, and demonstrating by activities and specific events that we actually care for our people, we care for our success, we put their success ahead of ours, and we also challenge them, and we invest both money and efforts in brainstorming on teaching them new things. So when they leave Science one day, and let's say they come and spend with us 5 years, and they successfully fulfill 2 different roles, when they come and shake my hands after 5 years and say, I'm ready for my next challenge, and I'll give them a hug, because I think it's okay that people leave after a number of years. They left Science, and they will never forget the professional experience, and they think they learn here that are relevant and actionable in the next job. So learning and developing your professional skills is a key theme in my organization, at least, and I heavily interview for it during the interview process. I want to make sure that people actually care for that. People that come with a notion, give me my list of accounts, I know everything, just let me do my job, are probably not going to be successful in my organization and are less likely to be hired.
Following my new order of things. So now we're going to discuss data processes and tools. And one question that we got from many of people in the audience is about whether we change goals in crisis times. If we do, why? If we don't, why? How do we adjust? So if someone thought that we were just going to pretend there's no COVID-19 going on, sorry to disappoint you. And I know all of you have things to say in comments, so just and actually, if you can also disclose whether your company changed the goals and why, and follow us through the logic behind that, that would be the best.
Sure. So we'll start with the forecast and changing times. I'll relate to that. I think what we kind of did also before, but it got a lot more attention once Corona started, is about, we're kind of, if you think about it, when you look at your opportunities, you have the ones, when you speak to the salespeople, so we have the ones that are, usually a sure thing. We know how to read them. Either it's, they're going to buy or completely not going to buy. That's easy. But I think the challenge in the forecast is to predict the bucket that are not sure. That they're evaluating the product, the demo was good, but it wasn't, a clear cut, yes or no. And this is usually like a big portion of it, at least 50%, even more. What we started to do, and we had to do it because we had to gain visibility, especially in COVID times, we started, first of all, in our internal pipeline talks, and then the salespeople, took it and relayed that and used it in their conversation with the prospects, is really to talk and put it on the table and to ask the client, or actually to understand first with themselves, does our tool increase the revenue for the client, and or reducing churn, and or saving human labor and reducing general risk in the company? Those are not easy questions to know, but there are ways. We actually invested time in creating an ROI calculator and doing some internal simulations how to do that with prospects. And eventually you want to get to the point where you acknowledge with the customer and quantify the impact of your tool. And once you do that, then suddenly magical things can happen. First of all, the client will suddenly understand, oh, completely amazing. I totally didn't even calculate that. That's a huge helper for me now to go and get an approval. Or we actually realize that we don't save money and we don't increase revenue and there is no point for him to buy. That's fine. With those tools, we're able to increase our forecast accuracy dramatically during COVID times.
And to the goals question, did you change your goals?
So we had, in our internal prep, we had kind of a very interesting discussion about it. Some companies, are, leaning towards not changing the goals. Some companies have to change the goals because it actually reverse engineer everything that they do beforehand. Like, if you take Oribi, for instance, we, on a monthly basis, we need to determine how much money we're going to advertise on Facebook, Google, Instagram, LinkedIn in order to get inbound leads, because our sales cycle are so quick, we can actually close them on a demo. We can sell them on the demo. So the data that we get about the quality and how to optimize that is like on a weekly basis. So we have the ability to determine if to increase the budget or not. And we definitely adjusted the goals because we simply, on March when Corona started, we simply didn't know. We didn't know if we're going to be one of those tools like, Zoom or closer to Zoom that the world needs right now, or are we going to be a tool that is not relevant because everyone are now, saving and waiting to see when this crisis is going to be over. Luckily, we realized that we're not Zoom, but we are definitely one of those tools that that are needed in the transition to the digital world by companies. And luckily, we were able to continue our growth.
Zvi, I see you want to go next.
Maybe it belongs to the to my largest part of the journey in sales, in running sales organization in a public company. I don't believe that you should easily change goals, even in a major crisis like COVID. And just to say what we didn't change our goals at Incredibuild. I think that when we talk about adjusting goals, it's mainly about reducing it. And when you're in a public company, you need to think very, very, very deeply before you even consider going to the board with such things. A goal is a beacon where you go. Forecast is a complex issue, and there are so many COVID events like during a company's journey. It can be major as COVID, it can be minor COVIDs, lots of COVIDs that you need to respond to, but don't, if you set up a goal, shoot for it, look at this, yes, act with responsibility, but the goal is a goal. So my view and my recommendation is keep as long as you can and don't change your KPIs or your goals because they were based on something. Debrief, analyze, ask the right questions, but goals should be the goals that you have set. That's my recommendation to the forum.
Neri, you?
I can say about us that in general, within our culture, we really fight hard to meet the goals that we initially set. So changing goals is not something that we would usually do. As a company, as a sales organization. Having said that, you need to keep in mind that another company behavior or policy is setting the bar very, very high. We are setting very aggressive goals, usually 3.5x, 4x year over year. And we did adjust slightly the target this year. We felt that doing 4x year over year, growing from 16 million last year to around 60 would be quite challenging. Consider the fact that Q2, the entire world stepped back and paused many of the deals. And it was important for us to set very aggressive goals, however, to show the team that they are achievable. So we did lower the goals a bit, but we're talking still on like more than 3.5x year over year. Very aggressive. We're setting the bar high for us. If we're not setting the bar high enough, we would probably push it higher. We tend to like to look at the bar from below and work really hard to reach it. Otherwise, we probably set it too low.
Just want to echo one thing, and we need to remember, and we know many startups out there, that if they just, I'm talking about Corona, when Corona started, if they would continue the same, investing the same money and burning their cash in the same pace they did as before Corona, they would be dead today. Because they suddenly realized after 2-3 months that their product doesn't sell. It's not a mission critical or must have right now.
But so, there is a difference between spending and goals. I think that the mix here is something that needs to be clarified. Goals are in most cases revenue goals. What do I want to achieve? Aggressive, not aggressive. That's one. At each time, at any point in time, you need to consider, Corona or not, whether the investment that you put inside is justified and not invest because you've budgeted. So the confusion between the two sides of the equation needs to be well considered. Goals are where do I go? It's not a goal to spend certain amount on marketing, for example. It's a budget.
So I would completely disagree, and that's fine. We're agreeing to disagree. Goals and targets are the reflections of what we're going to do, spend, hire, and how fast it's going to happen. We can do, let's say our goal is $1 million. My goal can be 10 million. If I have the budget and time to hire, spend marketing budget, get around, hire around, do around, etc., etc. So that's what I'm saying. When Corona started, which was an historical event in biblical magnitude matters,
Let's
affected many startups.
Target is a holy thing in the world of sales, and changing them up and down is not an easy thing. It has a lot of implications. But let's not forget, let's go back to basics. Our targets for this year were set based on assessment of the world and economic situation and data that was available sometimes in anywhere between September and November of last year. And so we randomly decide the number is going to be X. And we also assigned hiring targets and marketing budgets to generate leads and for events and for other revenue generating activities. And so as we continue to evolve, in some cases in the history of sciences, we actually raised the goals once, a few years ago, because we saw we can actually exceed. And then this year, we realized that we're going to pause on hiring, and we ended up restarting it measurably afterwards. And then we also realized that we're going to reduce the marketing spend because we felt that the investment was not worth the outcome that we were expecting. And consequently, because of the economy is different, we decided that on a per capita basis, on a per AE basis, we cannot expect as much as we expected with our original planning. So if you're agile, you need to, and there's two sides of the equation. The spend, it's a P&L, right? It's the spend and what you bring in and what you expect to invest, to get that. We adjusted both, and we'll continue exploring and analyzing and adjust both as needed to put the company in the best position to succeed in the long term.
Exactly.
I think just a quick comment on that for all of our listeners. I don't think there's right or wrong here in this topic or in any other. The main advice or the key takeaway I would give to all the audience here is that there are different point of views, and take whatever works for your sales organization and for your company.
Before we move to the last section, a question that came up, Yair, is about actually your headset. And it was tied to the session because
it's
the
for
person
sale,
asking
by the way.
it.
It's for sale.
Yeah,
it's very good condition.
The person asking it actually said it. It's one of the most important tools for a salesperson today. So if you can disclose what is it? But you're on mute.
I think it's a Jabra.
I
I saw the person and I actually tried to respond directly on the chat. I welcome the person to reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'll try to take photos and try to find a model for him and send him a link if I can. But choosing the weapon you go to battle with is absolutely important.
Okay, so moving to the last section, which is structure. And before we start with any of the questions that are written, Nir, many people asked if you could address the split that we have at Monday between our channels and partnerships and sales org. And so a bit on the rationale why we have it this way and how do they interact, and if you can just elaborate on that a bit.
Yeah, so at Monday, we're talking about two separate groups, the sales group and the partners group. By the way, the partners group is based not only on resellers. This is one group or organization that would resell or sell Monday for us. It also had a few other teams. We're working with GSIs or global strategic integrators. We're working with technology partners, large tech companies in the world. We're working with education institutions, a lot of academies and universities. So that all of that is the partners group, a relatively large group within Monday. There are some organizations where the partners, or at least the resellers group, are part of the sales. We've decided to separate it mainly for reasons of expertise. We wanted to bring people who are focusing on, establishing resellers, acquiring partners, pushing mainly that. Because when you do it within the sales group, you may have like conflict on, whether you drive direct sales or partners. So that's in terms of the consideration why to separate the groups. There are constantly.
Is there like an overlap? Are there challenges by separating them that show up?
Sorry, the overlaps?
If there are, yeah.
Yeah, so we have many cross-sell deals that we work together. One of our main focuses in both teams is to collaborate. Collaborate in a good manner. And again, this is another place where our compensation model works within our favor. In any case that we feel that a salesperson feel that they're getting a partner on board will increase their chances to win a deal, they don't have a consideration of whether it's going to impact my commission, whether I need to split the revenue with someone else. We can, double recognize for the partners, for the sales, and we're doing what's best for business, which is maximizing our chances to win the deal. So we work very closely together. We're aligning the strategy on where we want, in which countries we want our partners to lead the sales motion, which countries we want the sales to lead, and which countries we're working hand in hand to grow together.
Mm-hmm. I think it answers the question. Does anyone else have anything to say about resellers? Otherwise, we'll move to one of the next process structure questions. No? Okay. So, Yair, pick your favorite question out of the ones that you can see.
I'll take a big yes on hiring SDRs. Others will call them BDRs. We now call them ADRs.
Can you explain the rationale behind the question? Why is it even a question?
Some people will say it's another function that is not required, and if they can feed their salespeople leads, the salespeople can do the qualification or the initial qualification as well. Qualification, by the way, never ends, continues and intensifies as you go through the process. I'm a big fan of bringing those people into the organization simply because the qualification and sifting through the leads and focusing the account executives on the right accounts and opportunities is critical. It's a very intensive and highly time consuming. But beyond that, and by the way, we call it today account development reps because we want them to focus on the account, not on a specific lead. So it's a little bit more strategic thinking. But beyond that, we find that this is an incredible way to attract younger talent and to groom them internally and then promote them to salespeople. And we do that. We have a very, very successful program to do that. There's data behind that shows that people that move from ADR role to sales in Sisense are by far more successful than people we bring from the outside with a little bit of experience. So we have a very, very strong plan in place that within 12 to 15 months, subject to availability of open roles, but also subject to delivery of expected MBOs and performance numbers, people will be promoted to account executive if they want. If not, and upon availability, we promote them to team lead or to roles in customer success, even though the majority move to sales. Mm-hmm. So it's very good for the sales process and eliminate inefficiencies and eliminate or reduces expensive resources doing tasks that can be done by a little bit less expensive resources. And second, it allows us to attract talent in early stages and groom them in the company and build their culture, build their professional habits, and kind of make them ours.
Zvi, what's a realistic timeline for a structural change? Monday, we described our timeline.
So I'll start with it depends, and then I'll continue with, because it depends which structural change, how much budget you have behind it, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, everything depends, right, for everything.
Yeah, I agree. But one thing doesn't depend, which is patience. I think that if you believe in a structural change, you, the VP sales, believe in a structural change, and you find the good reasons why to go after that change, and you've managed to convince everyone up and down that this is the right change, give it a chance. Don't put the stopwatch and start counting the hours till it will make an impact. Because in most cases, I'm not talking about unicorns that have hundreds of millions behind any change, but in most cases, change take time. If you go, I've heard enterprise sales, we at Incredible move from low volume, low dollars transactions to the highest part. This change can take up to 2 years to move to such a different type of sale, and you need to have the power to stand in front of all stakeholders, and it's the salespeople and it's the board at the other side, and be patient. So it depends. What change do you do? But whatever you do, give it a chance to succeed, or God forbid, declare failure if needed. But in most cases, changes take time.
Emmanuel?
Sure. So I'll relate to the SDR part. I think it's very different in the DNA of the sales cycle. A company like Sisense or Incredible now in their stage, or any other mid-market / enterprise, it's a completely different story in terms of the sales cycle as opposed to Monday or Ribi and others that are, transactional, quick cycles, small figures in terms of the deal size. Just to give an example, for when a lead comes to a mid-market / enterprise company, then typically it's like a few months sales cycle. There is time to do the qualification. It's the right thing to do while, the hunters, the salespeople are doing their stuff and, cooking the opportunities and hopefully to close them. So it totally makes sense. It's actually a must to have this force qualifying before, moving into the sales people. In companies like Monday and Oribi and others, we can actually close the deal on the spot. So putting an SDR in that position can actually delay the process / risk the process, because an SDR wouldn't speak like a salesperson. And again, there are pros and cons. Sometimes it's good that there is an SDR and not a salesperson, because the SDR, it depends who it is. Anyway, this is a big dilemma for us. I have to say, we haven't decided. Today, we're not using SDRs. The salespeople are actually getting the leads and kind of, it's kind of flowing to the salespeople, and they're taking the whole 9 yards. But it is a question, since we're now scaling and we're stopped, from zero, we're already at the point that we're in the next level of the scale. So we not need to figure it out if it makes sense. One thing that we are checking, and this is kind of an advice to all the people out there that are, also having this dilemma, there are also some automations that can help. For instance, scoring. I'm sure the product and marketing folks are familiar with scoring and intent buying and all of that can automatically kind of, score the lead and either unqualify or qualify it. But what we actually got to an insight.
But Emmanuel, would you fully rely on one of those automated solutions? I mean, you do have your own process of qualification in the end.
Yeah, it's not perfect. You're right, but it could be, because we get tons of leads, inbound leads on a daily basis. It could, obviously they're going to be collateral damage, and we're going to kind of have some users that we should have got, but in the overall, it can be beneficial. But what we actually also discovered, that it could be that we can do a hybrid model and do automation on the one hand, and have a small, even I would say symbolic team of SDRs, 1 or 2, and the combination of the two can actually do the most efficient qualification.
Nir, do you want to comment?
Yeah, maybe to add on that. So first of all, I'm also a believer in SDR organization in general, just because it keeps the salespeople in focus on their pipeline and closing the deals. Having said that, it really depends on few parameters if it makes sense to have SDRs. I think that my colleagues here touched a few, but maybe to mention them. So first of all, whether you're inbound or outbound oriented, I think it makes even more sense to have SDRs when you're inbound, especially if you're talking about large volume of leads a day, a week, a month. Another parameter to consider is the deal size. The lower the deal size is, it may not be very economic to have few people within the sales process. And as you go up market with the deal sizes, it makes more sense to have SDRs and keep your people focused on the large deals and progressing them.
Neil, Karina, sorry to interrupt you. Karina, you asked, and it relates to what Emmanuel said, but would you let your SDRs give demos considering that it might just be the closing deal call?
So for us, the sales cycle is now pretty longer than we had when we just initiated the sales group. It would vary. Again, there are exceptions, but the average sales cycle would vary between 1 month to 2.5 months in mid-market and then in enterprises. We, in most cases, we wouldn't want the SDRs to demonstrate the product. First of all, we want our sales reps. I think that the demonstration is only one part of it, but a good demo has to be followed or has to follow a deep discovery. We don't want just to show the product and then show a generic demo. The idea is to really understand deeply what are the needs, what are the pains of the prospect, and accordingly to demonstrate how the product can answer those needs. And SDR was handling a large volume of calls of contact a day. I think they don't have the time, and I'm not sure even the expertise to deep dive into the prospect's pain and then to demonstrate the product accordingly. So I wouldn't recommend SDRs to demonstrate.
Yair, you did have an interesting point. We are reaching the end of our time. So you had an interesting point on the inbound to outbound transition.
So Sisense, and me as a first seller, was built on a mostly inbound engine. In other words, people that raise their hand and to, one way or the other show they're interested in Sisense. So we bought some qualified lead list that people said we're interested in BI, and then we bought the list, or people that actually registered on our website, came to events and stuff. And the question is, what's more qualified? What supports a faster growth? Because at the end of the day, we're trying to support growth, and growth is not only through just making sales, rather than bringing the right customers that will stay longer in a repeatable revenue model and will also grow with us. So it's either people raise their hands and said, I have an interest in Sisense, versus I'm Sisense. I know which use cases I'm beneficial at. I know which companies would benefit from Sisense, and I'm going to go after them and try to create a project because we can solve a big problem for companies. We have experience with solving big enough problems to similar companies. And I think the two should not conflict each other. They should complement each other. But I can tell that Sisense, when we go to $40-50 million in annual recurring revenue, we reached a plateau of the inbound model and had to start outbounding. Looking back, I would start it way earlier and would do both. I think the investment in both would, because the one is not they're not mutually exclusive. So obviously there's exclusive investments and there are a lot of investment that can serve the two engines. I would start with both out of the gates and consider outbound as the main, with inbound being a complementary one, at least in our business. Now, I would say one more thing, outbound is harder.
Why?
It's more rewarding because you need to have a talent pool and supporting infrastructure and processes in place that would be strong enough to go to you, right? I'm going to call you and convince you to spend time with me. Only to get you to pick up the phone and to spend 2 minutes with me is a big commitment that I need to deliver value in order to earn that. And then from there, I need to continuously deliver more value that makes me give me bigger and bigger commitments that start with more time and then exposure to your peers and other things. It's a full sales methodology, the trade of value with commitments. We need to lead with value to ask for corresponding commitments so we can deliver bigger value. And it's the same thing with business. Sometimes people buy a smaller package with you just to get some value, and then they want more. You said, well, you have to invest more in order to get more. So it's challenging. It requires slightly different talent. Those who just answer the phone versus those who pick up the phone and proactively go after people and challenge them. But I would say outbound is the way to do it at big scale in today's sales world.
Anyone else wants to comment on that? If not, I'll move to one last question asked on the chat by Maya. Maya asked if we think there are other healthy ways to bring hypergrowth without a sales team, and mentioned Uber and other companies that did that.
Without sales team?
Yes.
I would like to relate to it, with your permission. I'm sure that there are ways, but you've mentioned it's with Uber, with the extremists, the unicorns around us. And if we need to learn something, so it's good to strive for the best without sales team, without compensation, without, but we need to look also at what most are doing sales with, and be open, but be reasonable and realistic. This is my advice when you look at extreme models, because extreme models needs extreme conditions.
Actually, there are to your left and to your right, and at least on my screen, there are unicorns. So maybe they can describe like a different reality under those circumstances.
Well, Nir Goldstein is probably the best person to just answer that, because Monday started as a no touch and moving into high touch or low touch or however you call it. I would say it's easier to develop an engine of no salespeople when you're selling to consumers, or when you're selling a simpler, completely self-service solution to organizations, such as what Monday started with. I'll give you the stage. You know better.
2 minutes, Nir.
Yeah, so very quickly, it really depends on the business. And it's true that Monday started as a pure no touch, and it's still one of our main revenue engines. A lot of people are signing up for the product and becoming a paying customer without speaking with anyone. So it really depends on the business. What I want to highlight mainly is that sales has other advantages apart from revenue. When salespeople speak with customers, it helps the company to understand better the needs. It helps better to understand how people are using your product, what are their pains, and it actually expedited the no-touch process as well, because you really learn and understand better what people are looking for and how they perceive your product, how they perceive competitors. So I wouldn't look at it only at the numbers perspective. Sales contributes a lot to the growth of the company, not only by
Bringing dollars, yeah.
generating ARR.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I like being on time. And so I thank you all for joining us for this session. Tzvi, Yair, Emmanuel, and Nir, thank you for taking the time. Have a good day or a good night wherever you're at.